Well, a very good afternoon, everybody. I'm sorry that we're a few minutes late starting this very special virtual debate this afternoon. We had a few technical glitches to iron out, but hopefully you can see and hear me now. My name is Damon Embling. I'm a journalist with Euronews, and I'm going to be moderating this debate this afternoon called Rethinking and Reviving Travel and Tourism. I'm joined by an excellent panel here with me this afternoon. We've got Rita Marques, who's the Secretary of State for Tourism in Portugal, and she joins us from Porto. Very good afternoon to you, Rita. We've also got Matthew Baldwin, who's the Deputy Director-General of Mobility and Transport Directorate-General, DG Move, at the European Commission in Brussels. Hello to you, Matthew.
Pleased to be with you, Damon.
Thanks for being there. And also, last but not least, Eduardo Santander, who's the Executive Director of the European Travel Commission. Hello to you, Eduardo.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being there. So over the next 40 minutes or so, we're going to be looking at how the COVID-19 pandemic has really hit the travel and tourism sectors across Europe. Of course, they've become huge economic casualties, with planes grounded, hotels, leisure attractions closed, borders restricted. And of course, travel and tourism is such a big part of Europe's many economies. Eduardo, if I can just start with you from the European Travel Commission. I mean, who would have thought that at the beginning of the year that we'd all be sat here in a virtual debate wondering how to revive tourism?
Well, obviously nobody knew about this, and it's been devastating. So let's assume that the consequences of this crisis are not already over. However, we are now starting seeing light at the end of the tunnel. When there's some light, there's hope. We've seen that some activities starting to resume as we talk. We also see that many member states of the European Union are starting, to put measures in place, to reopen their borders and also to reopen their businesses. The only thing that I would like, to stress here is, and that we've been advocating very strongly, is, to the need of a coordinated and a harmonized approach. I think we still confronted not only with a health crisis, but now like a trust crisis. People don't really know where they can go, how they can travel, what kind of measures are going to be in place. And there's a little bit of a lot of confusion and some frustration, I would say.
And Eduardo, we're going to be discussing those very points during this debate, the confusion, people not understanding about the restrictions that are in place because they differ in so many different places, the trust, the confidence about traveling, flying and holidaying again. If I could just talk to you, Rita Marques in Porto, just sum up for us how important travel and tourism is to the EU from your country's perspective. I mean, this really has had a huge hit, hasn't it, on many economies? Well, unfortunately, we can't hear Rita right now. Hopefully, we can just sort out the technical issues with Rita. Let's cross over to Matthew Baldwin in the meantime in Brussels from the European Commission. Matthew, Eduardo was speaking there about the importance of coordination and sort of easing this element of confusion as we look to sort of revive and rethink travel and tourism. What is the EU doing right now to kind of develop that coordination?
Well, I completely agree with what Eduardo said about the importance of coordination on this crisis, this extremely important sector. 10% of EU GDP, 6 million jobs at stake. This is not something we're taking lightly. And I know all your listeners, Damon, are avid readers of European Commission documents, and we published a big package of linked documents on the 13th of May. And normally I'd be the last to list them for you, but it's completely relevant for what we're doing. So we set out a common approach to how we can lift restrictions on borders and restore our borders, a framework for the gradual re-establishment of transport links, the criteria for how we can safely restore tourism and develop health protocols for hotels, for example. And so we're trying to put together this coordinated approach. It doesn't necessarily all need to be harmonized. I would stress that. I think from the perspective of safety and restoring public confidence and really giving operators the maximum possible certainty, it's important we do as much as we can together as possible. And just to use the example of aviation, that's why the European Aviation Safety Agency and the European Centre for Disease Controls, the wonderfully named ECDC, have put together these detailed guidance for the management of air passengers and aviation personnel. It's designed to be an operational tool for member states and for operators, and we can update it. And the same thing is being done globally, by the way. But we recognize everyone's not going to do everything at the same time. It's not going to be possible. So as we reopen internal and external borders, as we reopen transport and tourism, 3 words I'd like to suggest for you: coordination, transparency, and non-discrimination. If we can respect those 3 principles as we move forward, I think, well, it's a big phrase, but I think we're going to be okay.
Rita, Marques, Secretary of State for Tourism in Portugal, I think we can hear you now. Hopefully you were just hearing what Matthew just said there. I mean, what do you make of what the EU is doing right now to coordinate the revival of travel and tourism, and where do you think Portugal is fitting into that right now?
EU measures have been very important in short term, as they allow the member states to be given a kind of a legal framework to support families, employees, companies, and especially the package travel directive. So that's in place. So we have a legal framework that's very favorable, and it's very important to adopt it, to have it vivid and in place. But of course, we believe that the European Commission should be a step ahead. So we need to join efforts and to work together with the Commission in its roadmap. And basically, I would like very much to stress or to pinpoint three main areas that I believe, that we should work together. Eduardo mentioned it. We need more information. We need data about what's going on in Europe. So at this point, every member state is doing their best. But we need a coordinated approach, and so we do need to have information and data, activity complying from all member states in order to comply with the necessary health and safety conditions. Second, mobility. Mobility is critical to restart business, to restart tourism activity. So we do need to work towards reopening borders and mobilize transports in a very harmonized way. To promote tourism within the EU. Third and last, funding. Funding tourism is absolutely crucial. In the first question that you asked me, you wanted some numbers. Tourism is a really important industry in Europe. In Portugal, travel related revenues account for almost 15% of our GDP. So we do need all member states that have strong tourism activity need a strong support from the EU to help business recover and to shift to the new tourism paradigm. I think this is important to say: more sustainability, more innovation, more digitalization, and so on and so forth.
Okay, Rita, there's a lot to think about there, and obviously you're highlighting the importance of travel and tourism across Europe. Just also say that if you're just joining this debate online, if you're just joining us, we're debating this afternoon, rethinking and reviving travel and tourism after the COVID-19 pandemic. And if you want to ask any questions to our panel here this afternoon, just drop us a comment just below the live stream where you're watching us now. I've had lots of questions in on social media before this debate as well, so we're putting some of those to our panelists. Hello to Fernando Victor, one of the people that's just joining us live now. Eduardo, I mentioned there that we've had a lot of questions in from our audience about travel and tourism and where it's all going after this pandemic. I mean, the question on everybody's lips, I suppose, is when can I travel? When can I go on holiday? But it's not a simple question to answer, is it, right now?
It isn't at all, and it isn't at all for obvious reasons, and we heard from Matthew, all the biggest effort, the huge efforts that the Commission is putting now in place, not only from a funding perspective, but also, Commission is up to release in the next days or weeks, a new website exactly answering all these questions. And obviously, it's not as easy as it appears to be. It's not a simple website because you have to gather data from all member states plus operators with the different protocols and so on, and then unify that in all different official language of the European Union. So it's taken some time. But what I would like to stress is also what Rita says. This is a crisis also of confidence, of trust. That trust is the new confidence. I'm saying that because as I work in tourism, but I'm also a tourist myself. And tourism is a sector which is based in very predictable facts. And you want to go to a place if you're going to feel safe. Your family is gonna be good. You're gonna be having fun. If all these predictable facts are not granted, you probably will not go on holiday. And this is the question that we all have. maybe we can grant safety, but it's about the perception of destinations, and this is where I'm still stressing the fact that we need to come with a European approach here, because it goes beyond every single border. The confidence has to be built first in the travel industry, in the fact of traveling, and then obviously on the fact of tourism, of the tourism activity. And there, as stated by previous speakers, I say that the funding schemes, to help the tourism entrepreneurs, which, by the way, in the European Union are 85% SMEs, or small and medium-sized enterprises, family-owned businesses, micro enterprises. So they are they are confronting existential threat. So if the summer season won't happen, we're going to have a lot of problems after the summer.
Matthew Baldwin, let's go back to you in Brussels at the European Commission. We're talking about trust, confidence, coordination. This really is about restoring faith and trust in travel and tourism, isn't it? And how much of a balance do you think it is between the economy and health concerns? Because some people will be critical, saying health concerns have to come first, but it does seem like the economy is being put before that. Well, I think we don't have Matthew with us at the moment, but Eduardo, I can still see you there. I mean, well, actually, we have Rita back with us, I think, who can still hear me this afternoon. Rita, Eduardo was talking there about sort of restoring that confidence, having EU coordination. But this also comes down to individual countries, doesn't it? Because the pandemic has hit different countries in different ways. In Portugal, you've been fortunate enough to have a relatively low infection rate, particularly compared to your neighbours in Spain. We heard this week that actually you're looking to welcome tourists back very soon. I mean, what's your plan?
Yeah, definitely. In fact, we were lucky enough not to be we didn't have so many infected people here in Portugal. Our response was kind of efficient and with quality, and so we are back to business. Fortunately for Portugal, and fortunately for all the other travels that would like to visit our country.
But in terms of foreign visitors coming into the country, I was reading just yesterday, actually, you're thinking about maybe having this sort of travel corridor between the UK and Portugal, for example. How soon can foreign visitors get into Portugal? And if it is going to be soon, how on earth are you doing that when other countries are saying, now's not the time?
In fact, we had the first charter last week. It came from Luxembourg, from the center of Europe. So as soon as the flights take off, we will restart activity, and that has happened already. Of course, we do know that we have specific countries that are very important and very dear to us, like UK, and not all the conditions are in place in order to foster traveling between these two countries.
But you are talking to the UK actively right now, aren't you?
We are. We have been talking to everybody, including the UK. Absolutely. Portugal has. We don't have quarantine, so we don't have a confinement rule when you reach our country, when you land in our country.
Actually, your foreign minister was saying yesterday that quarantine was an enemy of tourism. I quote. I mean, when other countries are saying quarantine is absolutely necessary, why are you going against that?
I think we adopt or we intend to adopt this rule that the origin country should be controlling the health status of all travelers. So basically, if all of us implement this type of rule, we wouldn't have the need of quarantine. And so Portugal, what we have been saying is that mobility should be allowed across Schengen areas, and the Commission should take the lead in order to harmonize all the rules in the airports and traveling related rules. And this is an example. If all the airports would have this in place, body control, temperature in the origin, we didn't need to go to quarantine. And this has been the position of Portugal since day one. Unfortunately, what we can see right now is the Commission, is taking maybe some time. So member states are negotiating between themselves. And this is not helping what Eduardo said before, the coordinated approach. So we are running out of time. We really need to have an integrated approach. That's not happening. That's why, member states are negotiating among themselves.
And so let's just be clear. I mean, one question we had on Instagram actually was saying, when does Portugal open its borders for tourism, from Giro Salmeida? I mean, we talked about the UK there, but I mean, what is the plan over the coming weeks and months? When can people from all over Europe come back into Portugal?
At this point, we don't have any restrictions except for Spain and Italy, because, as you know, that's an European rule. So we don't have any restrictions in place. Of course, we do have a reciprocity protocol. That means, for instance, if you are traveling from the US and if the US is having some restrictions on European travels, of course, we adopt the same restrictions. But overall, we don't have any restrictions right now. Except for the land border. As you may know, it's closed with Spain, so we are trying to guess what is the best what is the best time to open up the border. But this is a kind of negotiation that's underway with Spain and Portugal.
Okay, Rita, let's go back to Matthew Baldwin in Brussels. Matthew, good to have you back there. We hear this word harmonisation, but actually, across Europe, there isn't really that harmonisation right now. It is very confusing. And while countries like Portugal are saying they're not going to have quarantine, I mean, when countries like the UK on Monday next week will introduce quarantine for any people coming back into Britain, that would mean somebody like me who's in the UK right now, I can't go to Portugal. It's all a bit of a mess, isn't it?
Well, of course, the UK is not a member of the European Union, and I can't comment.
But this is also about a global picture as well. It's not just about the European Union. This is international travel as well, isn't it?
Of course, and I want to underline, we're not, it isn't the usual kind of Brussels mantra about everything has to be harmonized and we want, fixed rules. A lot of this stuff is in our jargon, the competence of member states, and we're not trying to tell everyone what to do. We're trying to give people a toolbox on which to coordinate our way out of this crisis, including on travel and tourism. And that's the way I hope the guidelines that we published back on the 15th of May are seen. And the key thing is now, I very much agree with what Rita said about sharing information and data. We are just now asking member states to give us reactions to what we put on the table, so that this information is shared between member states, so that different partners can see what each one is doing in terms of health protocols, in terms of borders, in terms of all the different aspects of this. But again, if people follow what they set out in the EASA and ECDC guidelines, if we do that, we can, the way to look at this, to try to make a complex subject quite simple, it's basically trying to reduce it to the same risk as going to the supermarket. And then when you do that, then you can start to build the confidence in people in traveling.
And Matthew, this sort of revival of the tourism industry, we talked a little bit about sort of travel corridors, but these travel corridors and bubbles where, you might have these sort of links between certain countries with that are seen to have relatively low infection rates. How much does the EU support those kind of things? And how in reality can that be enforced and how can it work?
Well, one of the three words I mentioned right at the beginning is non-discrimination, which is extremely important. And that's one of the risks I think you run with travel bubbles and travel corridors. And the vital thing for us is that any restrictions or indeed any bubbles are based on public health considerations and not on nationality. This is absolutely critical. We're going to insist on that in relation to borders and health protocols and everything. If we can do that, if we can coordinate together with, again, not the Commission telling everyone what to do, we can work on the basis of non-discrimination, I think we can start to make real progress.
Eduardo, from the European Travel Commission, let's just bring you back in there. We mentioned earlier on about the sort of experience of travelling and the impact that all of this could have. What do you see as the kind of new normal in terms of not only flying, maybe taking a train, but also when somebody gets to a destination where normally they want to be relaxing, socialising, mixing with people? Potentially, it's not going to be much fun, is it?
Well, arguably, that's the new normal. I would say that unless we have all the safety concerns under control, there's always going to be like a sense of rarity. Nobody's going to feel absolutely safe if we have to wear a mask going to a hotel pool, or maybe we cannot use the breakfast room in a hotel, or we have to separate by 20 meters on a beach. So I think that's the biggest concern about the demand is how are we gonna stimulate demand under these circumstances? It's very, very difficult to attract people to travel as they used to travel like months ago or years ago under the current circumstances. And coming back to the previous comments about bilateral, multilateral agreements between countries, I think that creates a lot of fragmentation. And maybe it's an opportunity for the European Union, to play a little bit the referee. And it's, I think, the first time the member states are asking the Commission, to rule, because there is this fragmentation is costing more jobs, it's costing more financial crisis, and it's costing more pain, both for demand and obviously for the supply.
Thanks, Eduardo, and thank you to all of you that are submitting questions on social media, and thanks for joining us for this debate. Hello to Flash, Ahmed, Innovation Spotlight, Caroline, Tensi. Rita, if I could just bring back you, the Secretary of State for Tourism in Portugal. This issue of sort of reassurance and safety. I mean, you're saying that you don't have these sort of quarantine rules in at the moment, but for example, people are asking here, Lady XRG, how risky can it be for kids to go on holiday? Giovanni, Greece is saying, what's the best thing to do to stay safe? Other people are saying some countries stop restrictions and lockdown already, but is it really safe to stop a second wave of a pandemic of coronavirus? I mean, while you might be saying that Portugal is opening, clearly there's a lot of people that are quite worried right now, probably won't book any flights or holidays, but they're still feeling like this.
I understand. We all understand that a lot has changed during these couple of months, but we have to open gradually with all the care, with all the attention to the details, with all the sanitary rules in place. But we have to open up because it's the way that we are living in these few weeks. It's not the way that we would like to live in the future. So we have to open up. And Eduardo put it, the confidence, trust is really important. In Portugal, what we have been doing so far is that we have been outlining the rules. So everybody knows the rules, the physical distance, using masks, how you should behave in closed spaces. And we believe that, it's going to be the new normal for the couple of months.
And how easy are your businesses in the tourism and travel sector adapting? I mean, is it quite a headache for them right now or not?
Very well, very well. They understand, very well. Companies realize from the first second that they needed to adopt those rules, to prevent infection among workers, among clients, among travelers. So very well. They are. It has been really a success. We have implemented a pioneer initiative in Europe. So we had on April the 24th, we launched a seal, a sanitary seal. And up to now, 50% of our hotels have already the seal. So basically, they comply with a set of requirements, and in a voluntary basis. So basically, we have two sets of requirements. The first set that is mandatory comes from the health authority, and then we have established a surplus, a add-on by the National Tourism Authority, and so the companies can adopt this second package of instructions of conditions, and basically, as I said, 50% of the hotels here in Portugal have already adopted this seal. So it's amazing. They have been amazing.
Rita, I've been to your country many times, to Lisbon, Porto, and the different wine areas, and it's clear that tourism is a massive part of your country, and it's not just the sort of hotels. Really, Portugal has concentrated on this sort of market of private homes being rented out on the likes of Airbnb, those sorts of platforms. People haven't been able to use those properties, really, have they, over the past few months? What fears do you have for that particular sector of tourism within Portugal? I mean, is this going to have a huge impact on the real estate market? There are people that own all these properties that they've bought, going to start selling them. What's going to happen?
No, absolutely. I don't think so. I think it is going to be the opposite. In fact, a lot of people that have second home here in Portugal, they tried to move to Portugal during the pandemic. So because they knew that we protected ourselves in a good way, as it has been said before, we dealt with the pandemic disease in an excellent way. I should say we didn't have so many infected people. Our health system responded well. So we did have a lot of people, for instance, from the UK asking to come in to go to their second home or to work, teleworking. I think it's also important. They prefer to be in Algarve, for instance, or in Madeira, working from there instead of working from their homes, their houses. So I have to say that I really don't agree with this trend that you were trying to describe.
Okay, thank you for that. And I hope that answers your question. Innovation Spotlight, that's just commented saying, what do you think about Airbnb's attractiveness in future travel? I think Rita was just summing up there what's been happening in Portugal. Matthew, if I can just go back to you, as we look at the EU as a whole, I mean, Portugal's putting its craze across there for tourism. We hear that Greece is going to be opening up so soon to some tourists from certain countries on its list, but it is going to be a patchwork quilt, isn't it? And do you think countries like Spain and Italy, which have been particularly badly affected by this pandemic, I was reading on LinkedIn the other day an article with an analyst saying maybe they'll just become known as these sort of disaster countries and people won't want to go to those places for a long time.
Well, the advantage they have is that they entered the crisis relatively early and they're now coming out of it. And I think they can start to show epidemiologically, I'm no expert on that, they can start to show, I think, a much better situation than existed a few months or certainly a few weeks ago. I mean, one of the things I think we can do to help in the European Union is provide tourists with that information which will build that sort of confidence. And one of the things we're hoping to bring live online soon, very soon, will be a tourism app. So simple to use, and every citizen will be able to look at the conditions that apply in the different countries. So where are hotels open? What are the situations in airports, in public transport in respect of wearing masks? Again, information, again, as Rita was saying, is about building that confidence in the situation. And, you know, the summer season is now, and we want to try to enable the sector to do as well as it can, and that applies both to transport, of course, and tourism.
Okay, if you're just joining us on this live virtual debate from Euronews, we're talking about rethinking and reviving travel and tourism in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, which has obviously had a massive effect on these two sectors right across the European Union and, of course, internationally. Eduardo, if I can just bring you back here, what do you think really now is the priority to get people traveling again? And when I'm talking about traveling, I'm not just talking about tourists, because of course, you know, we're talking about the business market here. I mean, Zena Mugdadi is just commenting saying, what does restoring business travel look like in the future? How does this fit in? Many people travel to work throughout the year. So what is the priority for travel, for business and for leisure? What needs to happen now to get us moving again?
Yeah, again, transparency. If we talk about the first confidence and trust being the new currencies, I think we forgot about transparency. We need to be very clear to businesses, you know, how the new normal is for them too. Business travel is massive for Europe. Also the exhibition, the MICE industry, the meetings, incentives, exhibitions. Imagine places like Berlin, like Paris, like Madrid, you know, like all these big centers of business, they are so highly dependent of the business travel. There's nothing very particular for them. Obviously, you know, travel, the moment travel will resume, all the rules will be applicable for every single traveler, in particular when it comes to air travel. And this is one of the keys that I would like to underline, because you asked me before, what kind of travel are we going to expect this summer? And I would say, yeah, it's going to be a lot of self-catering. It's going to be a lot of car holiday, a lot of holiday in the nature, you know, in open spaces, for obvious reasons, right? As we don't have to be an expert for things like that. It's just because people would like to be in their own bubble, talking about bubbles again. And for the business travel, it's not going to be different. You know, obviously, when business travel starts resuming, it's going to be in a more probably efficient way, shorter meetings, in maybe doing shorter distance, a lot of probably meetings using new technologies and maybe non-presential. This is going to be maybe one of the biggest changes after COVID, is the teleworking possibility and the teleconference possibility, also with a huge impact when it comes to CO2 emissions and so on. So I think we're going to open a huge debate in how much business travel is going to be needed and how much is not. Which obviously that doesn't stop people from thinking that some business, including tourism, is a human one. So you need to meet people. So you cannot do everything in front of a screen.
Very good insight there. And, Rita, I want to go back to you in Portugal. One of the points that Eduardo was making about there was that sort of people staying within their own bubbles, maybe staying in their own countries, staycations. I know that in Portugal right now, you've got quite a big campaign going on, haven't you, for people to sort of enjoy their local surroundings within your country. I mean, we did some research recently, actually, at Euronews, where we were asking people in Germany, Italy and France who planned to travel before the pandemic what they were feeling now. In Germany and Italy, most people were saying they now weren't planning to travel anywhere. But in France, most people were saying that they're probably going to travel domestically. So in Portugal, do you think the whole staycation thing is going to become increasingly important? Because A, maybe you're not going to have as many foreign visitors as you'd like, and B, your Portuguese residents in their own country might be fearful about traveling away from their own borders.
Yeah, I think, staycation, microcation, slow tourism, all those new concepts are not so new. In fact, I don't think they are new in fact.
But are you going to see more of that, do you think?
Yes,
do you think people have rediscovered their local areas?
I think so, and I think that's an excellent excuse to stay at home and to discover new places or places that they have been there already, but they want to go there twice or three times. But still, I think, in medium term, in long term, we will come back to what we know from tourism. People need to travel. They need to travel to and meet new people, new countries, new regions, new sites. And you mentioned Germany, for instance. The information that I have from Germany is, in fact, staycations are really a trend, but at this stage, they don't have enough offer to cope with the demand. So, they have to promote people to go outside as well, because there is not enough offer in Germany for all the Germans to stay in Germany. So just a couple of examples to show to you that in medium term, even this year, next year, we will rebound. International tourism will come again. And I think, that's how we are as humans, as society. We need to travel. And even for the MICE industry, I understand what Eduardo was saying. Of course, we will have digital meetings more and more often. But I guess that people would like very much to go to Lisbon or to Porto for a MICE meeting, to meet their colleagues, to have a dinner in a nice restaurant. And as soon as the vaccine is there, as soon as we have all the security conditions in place, I think rebound of tourism is going to happen.
Matthew Baldwin, let's go back to you in Brussels, if I may. I mean, we just had a question in here from Rajat Rokadi, who's watching live. I mentioned earlier that this was not just about tourism and travel in the EU, of course, it's more about the international perspective as well. Rajat was saying, is there any plans to allow travellers from outside the EU to come in? If so, most of the embassies are not issuing any visas. I mean, what are you doing to kind of coordinate within the EU, but also to get people coming back into the EU?
If I may just briefly comment on what Rita was saying, pick that one up. I thought I completely agree with what you're saying, and I think that was a very innovative way as a Minister of Tourism to look at the current situation. I would just add to that list, and you've got a good story to tell, of course, in Portugal, ecotourism, which can be the local tourism. So many people are interested in new ways of getting about Europe, and maybe we've been talking so much, Damon, here about the challenges. I think one of the great opportunities is that we start to value a bit more. We always do. We value more what we haven't been able to have, and we're all dying for a holiday. And that sense of, people valuing the travel, valuing the holiday, the intangibles, the sand under your toes, the different food, the cultural experiences you get on holiday, I think it does, to me, line up to a good rebound. And I'm no marketing or commercial specialist, but when your customers really, really value what it is you're selling them, that's pure gold. And that's what I think tourism can offer in the future. Yeah. On your specific question, Damien, it's a difficult question because we have, of course, internal borders, particularly on Schengen. And, we've said in our package of the 15th of May, we want to see these internal border controls lifted as soon as possible. There will still be health controls. We recognize that.
But you want them all to be lifted together as well, right? You don't want this sort of patchwork.
We'd like to see it happening again in a coordinated way. The external border is the natural corollary to that. And we're discussing that now. And we'll be coming forward, I think, with some more ideas on how we can lift the external border.
When might that be?
I can't put a date on it, but we're working very hard on that now because, of course, this is an important part of tourism. We fully recognize that. But if you think of it, in terms of different vessels, as it were. If we open the external borders and we still haven't got the internal border situation sorted out, we could have quite a mess on our hands. So that's the sequencing we're looking at the moment.
Timothy Lampkins was asking that question. Sorry, carry on.
No, sorry, I was just saying it's my colleagues in DG Home who are working on this. I'm no great expert, but that's the plan. Okay,
we had a question in about when the Schengen borders would open. So Timothy, thanks for that on Instagram, and hopefully that sort of answers your question there. Eduardo, we were just to hearing from Matthew there about sort of maybe changing preferences for holidays and travel in the future, maybe ecotourism. Ecotourism, obviously a big part of the sustainability issue. How big a role is sustainability now going to have? It was already having a big role in travel and tourism, but where do you think it's going to be going in the wake of this pandemic?
Massively. I mean, I saw a picture the other day, of a couple hugging and saying, what is going to change after COVID? And the lady's answering to him, everything. Tourism is going to be the same. We had this debate about sustainability for the last, I think, 10 years already, even long. The concept of sustainability in tourism goes back to the 80s already. But the reality is that tourism is a margin-driven and very profitable industry. So obviously, nobody wanted to make a very quick change because it was very risky. Now we are confronted with reality. From time to time, we only need a shock, to change. And this is what, in my humble opinion, is what's going to happen. We work at the European Travel Tourism together with our members and partners in a concept called Transformative Regenerative Tourism, which it doesn't imply, to kill everything what it has been done in the past. Not everything that it was done in the past was wrong. On the opposite, many initiatives worked 20 years ago and are still working without a huge impact. So what it's happening now is that people are probably not only planning a holiday, but also reflecting more about what they want to do, what they want to experience, and putting more value on their expenditure. And that's exactly the ultimate goal when it comes to sustainable tourism. We want, to go back to the local communities, to give back to them, to also explain to the tourists, their impact when they go on holiday, and so that they can distribute, their expenditure in the whole value chain in a more equal way. And I think the COVID crisis is only accelerating this process for all of us, not only at level of entrepreneurs and so, but at a end consumer level, where we are all thinking much more about our decisions, our actions.
Eduardo, thanks for that. And I think obviously the sustainability and green issue is also relevant very much to the aviation industry right now. Will as many of us be traveling on planes in the future? Well, we want to, because the skies have been clear of many, many thousands of planes over Europe over recent months, and people have been saying that that's helped to cut pollution. So will more and more of us be choosing maybe to travel closer to home and not fly in the future? While I'm talking about flying, we're running out of time, but Matthew, I just want to ask you quickly, because we've had quite a few questions about flying and aviation in the sort of post-COVID-19 new normal. Zerbase was saying on Instagram, how will we be seated on a flight? And somebody else was saying here, Caroline Santos actually was saying, is it safe to go on an aeroplane? This all feeds back into that safety issue, but airlines have got a big job on their hands at the moment, haven't they?
They have, and they've had a really, really tough time, and they've been running on fumes over the last few weeks, as you've seen these astronomical drops in the amount of flying that's gone on, particularly in the European Union. Our goal is to make sure that healthy companies are not going under. And I think the combination of national support and the flexibility we've shown in our new state aid guidelines to, again, is aimed at exactly that, trying to keep the healthy companies alive. What we're now seeing is the second part of the equation, of course, is the pickup in bookings. And you're seeing now, if you look at the flight plans that have been registered with Eurocontrol, the European Flight Control Organization, they find 60% of normal the flight plans for July. Now, of course, we don't know all those flights will be flown, but what I think airlines are doing is they're reinstating the destinations, and then they're building up the frequency as they see how much demand there is, and that in turn is going to depend on how much consumer confidence we can bring back through the proper implementation of the EASA guidelines.
But what's it going to be like flying on a plane in the future and going through airports?
Well, I mean, I don't know any more than you do, but I think we're all trying to feeling our way. And again, these EASA guidelines are not prescriptive. They're designed to find a common sense, health-based way for everyone to have confidence. And again, to use the parallel so that we don't, it's not risk-free to go to the supermarket right now. And we want to get flying and that sense of flying to be to the same level of risk as going to the supermarket.
Okay, let's just get some final thoughts before we close. Rita, Marques, Secretary of State for Tourism in Portugal. Final thought from you from where this is all going?
Well, there are three magic words that I would like very much to pinpoint. First one is confidence. Second one is collaboration or cooperation. We have to work together in Europe as a team. And the third one, I think it's very important to communicate in a clear way, positive way, assertive way. So with these three C's, I think we'll rebound very shortly.
And Eduardo, a final thought from you. I'm getting from this conversation, this debate this afternoon, that it's, a lot of challenges right now, but also lots of opportunities for rethinking travel, tourism, the way that we all behave in these industries.
Absolutely, maybe more conscious traveling and tourism. I would not like to quote all the time Michael O'Leary from Ryanair, but in his last declarations to the media, we say after COVID, everybody's going to need a holiday. And we hope that this holiday is going to be a more conscious one, and a more transformative one and more innovative one, and these all start from home and thinking what you want to do or what kind of experience you want to live.
Matthew Baldwin, a final thought from you. I mean, you've had some challenges in the EU over recent years, haven't you? Things like Brexit, but the COVID-19 pandemic has been a real huge challenge for the European Union. What's your priority now at an EU level to get things moving again?
Well, this is the granddaddy of all challenges, isn't it? But to pick up on what Eduardo was saying, the only thing more dangerous than quoting Michael O'Leary is contradicting Michael O'Leary. So I'm not going there. I like Rita's three words, so I want to give my three again. It's transparency, coordination, and non-discrimination. They sound a bit bureaucratic, but applied in the tourism and travel basis, I think really is the key to the way out of this. And the Commission is right behind the sector. I really want to stress that, from the President down to all of us, we're really trying to work to make this crucial sector viable. And the transport industry, you've both been through a hell of a time, and we're right with you in trying to work this out. With funding, with all our efforts of coordination and working with you together, we can get there.
Down but not out, I think, across Europe right now. Travel and tourism, obviously, lots to think about across both sectors, for businesses, for us individuals that are looking to holiday in the future or just to travel for work as well. Thank you very much indeed to all of my guests this afternoon. Matthew Baldwin there, the Deputy Director-General of Mobility and Transport, Directorate-General, DG Move at the European Commission. Thank you. Rita Marques, Secretary of State for Tourism in Portugal, who joined us from Porto. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
And Eduardo Santander, Executive Director of the European Travel Commission over there in Brussels. Thanks to you as well for your expert insight this afternoon.
You're very welcome.
Bye-bye.
And thanks to everybody who's been watching online our virtual debate this afternoon. Thank you very much for all the questions you've been feeding in during this live debate and also on our social media platforms in the days running up to it. Sorry we couldn't get around to all of them, but hopefully we've answered some of the main topics there. So thank you very much indeed for joining us. Thanks to everyone. And if you are able to travel and holiday in the near future, happy and safe travels. Bye for now.
Bye-bye. Stay safe. Bye-bye. Thank you so much.